Bonjour, I'm gonorrhea. Let's talk about the neighbors, Canadians and the Americans. Stop. If you're a Canadian... Sorry. If you're a Canadian who's easily offended, thin-skinned, emotionally brittle, or otherwise whiny bitches, please stop watching this video. You're gonna catch some feels, and we wouldn't want that, would we? Anyways, whenever you ask a member of Group X what they think of the people belonging to Group Y, that person will almost always talk about the differences rather than similarities. This is natural. This is expected. This is how Homo sapiens have evolved. To note the differences rather than the similarities, because it's the differences that you see that will save you from being lion bait. Canadians are especially guilty of this. When you ask Americans what they think of Canada, they'll think of a nicer, quieter, politer, effeminate version of America. When you ask Canadians what they think of the US, there's a veneer of smug self-superiority, soon followed by the same f***ing list of differences. Better gun control, universal healthcare, gay marriage, multiculturalism, bilingualism, and colder. What these smug Canadians fail to realize is that most of these differences are vastly exaggerated. Fact, Canadians and Americans are virtually the same people, the same culture, the same foods, even the same f***ing accent. But what you're not being told is that not all Canadians see themselves as so different from their southern neighbor. Here's the other fact. Canadians who are sociopolitically geared towards the center-left are more likely to believe that Canadians are either different from Americans or should be different. On the other hand, Canadians who are sociopolitically center-right are not only more likely to think Canada and the US are almost the same, but they wish that Canada was more like the US. Ho, ho, ho. Isn't this a surprise? For all of you perplexed, we need to go back to the list I mentioned earlier. Gun control, universal healthcare, gay marriage, multiculturalism, and bilingualism. Notice a pattern? Yep, they're all positions that in North American political vocabulary is widely seen as sociopolitically center-left positions. You see, when lefty Canadians see the US, they look down on Americans. They pity them. They're embarrassed to be next to it. And they see European countries, especially Scandinavian countries, and wish Canada could be more like them. In all their smugness, these Canadians fail to realize that culturally speaking, Canadians and Americans have so little to differentiate between the two that they're really identical countries, like Guatemala versus Honduras, or Uruguay versus Argentina, or Australia and New Zealand. Remember, Canadian features like gun control, bilingualism, healthcare, etc. are all top-down, government-driven, purely political measures. They're just government policies. But culturally, you really believe the average Canadians are somehow nicer than the average Americans? Please, let me tell you something about Canadians. They're culturally the same. For example, Vancouver and Victoria are just like the rest of the American West Coast. A bunch of hippies, junkies, weedaholics, and Asians. Not necessarily in that order. And the climate? They're a copy of Seattle. Toronto is just a mini-me version of New York City, with a funnier public image. And Montreal is an orphan version of Paris, minus the superior accent. But seriously, why does Quebecois French have to sound like an Anglophone trying to speak French? And conservative gun-toting cowboys and manly men like the American South? Canada has that too, but with less hot girls. Plenty of Canadians love guns and do not bash their military. Plenty of Canadians support small government, and plenty of Canadians are obese fat f***s, just like American Southerners. Accent? Unless you're a hick bum f***, there's no Canadian accent. It's all just Midwestern American. Canadian foods? Canadian dress? Canadian holidays? Well, they do have Thanksgiving, Labor Day, St. Patrick's, and oh wait! Lastly, for all you people saying, what about the frigid Arctic north of doom? Last I checked, Russia did not sell off Alaska because it was too tropical and sweaty. And I don't blame them. Canadians, please, stop trying to be something you're not. You're not Scandinavians. You're not Western Europeans. Vous n'êtes même pas l'Europe. You're just like Americans. Just accept your identity and embrace what you've become. Let me know if you have any feedback on the video. I read all your comments. If you like what you see, subscribe and give me a like so I know. And if you want me to KYS, let me know how in the comments.